Welcome to Plague of the Day. I am Ken, and with me, as always, are Chris and Nate. Hey guys, welcome back. We got a great guest today. He comes from the Middle East, from Iraq, and his name is Ali, and he is an award-winning journalist. So he's like way above our pay grade in many ways. And somehow he agreed to come on our show. And one of the plagues I think is, especially for Americans and maybe in other parts of the world too, is they don't understand the Middle East, and we don't even really understand what is the Middle East and what the issues are. And Ali grew up there. He knows this. He's been a reporter on it. And I thought it'd be interesting to get his perspective of what Americans should understand about the Middle East. Like, what are things we should know so we're better educated, like when people talk about like all the different things going on. So without further ado, I say we bring in Ali and he can school us on these great things. So here we go. Welcome, Ali. And he's being admitted there. Ali Z.
Hey guys.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you for inviting me to this beautiful discussion.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
I'm assuming it will be beautiful.
Yeah.
They always are. Always beautiful.
Yeah. Well, so right away, how do we fix everything?
Turn off the podcast and just go to sleep.
Nice.
Try to dream of better days, I guess.
Yeah. Well, one thing you and I talked a few days ago before you came on, and one thing a lot of people don't know, at least Americans, and even when you talk about it, like it popped back in my head. What exactly, when people say the Middle East, what are they talking about? Like,
well, it depends who you ask. Like, if you ask an expert in Washington, D.C., he probably will talk about countries east of the River Nile, all the way till like the borders of Pakistan and Afghanistan to the east. And anything before, like west of the River Nile, all the way to Morocco, that's North Africa. And we're talking about, so it's usually they call it the MENA region, meaning the Middle East, North Africa region. But more and more, like these borders on the Nile actually disappearing. So a lot of people now, when they say the Middle East, probably sometimes they talk about Tunisia or Libya or Morocco, and that's not correct. If you just want to be more specific, so you have to talk about Israel, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, all these beautiful, peaceful places, and Iran, Turkey, obviously. Turkey is like kind of confused. Sometimes want to be in the Middle East. Sometimes they prefer to say Europe. Oh, that's Turkey. That's an Ottoman thing. And then you have all the rich countries, like the Gulf countries, which is like Saudi Arabia and like Bahrain, Oman, Kuwait, UAE, Emirates, Qatar, and the poor neighbor of Yemen. That should be part of the Gulf countries, but it's not. And obviously, that's where a lot of problems happen now with Yemen, especially when it comes to the naval movement and the trade movement and everything. It's useful if you pull a map and people can really understand where are these things happening. And I'm originally from Iraq. I'm half Iraqi, half Turkish. And Iraq is actually on the tip of the Gulf countries. It's like the Gulf is actually big part of the Gulf is because of the Euphrates and the Tigris rivers coming all the way from Turkey to Syria to Iraq, they go all the way south and they form one of the parts of the Gulf. But Iraq is not in the Gulf countries except in soccer or football. That's the only thing they count Iraq in.
Okay. So what is it? What's like one of the big misconceptions that like Americans at least seem to have about the Middle East?
Okay. Middle Easterns are not all Arabs, and Middle Easterns are not Muslims. That's like the two big things. I mean, yes, majority are Muslims, but I know a lot of people get offended when, like, for example, now we have election and they say like Arabs and Muslims, and it's very interesting because Arabs in the United States, and probably don't want to talk about this, maybe we'll talk about it later, but Arabs in the United States actually more Christian than Muslim Arabs, and by big numbers, like 60% of Arabs in America, more than 60% of Arabs in America are actually Christians. Okay. And so yeah, they are not. It's not mutually exclusive. I mean, Arabs are not all of them Muslims, and Muslims are not all of them are Arabs.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. But I imagine, there's still a lot of ties to, like you have a lot of relatives that are still out in the Middle East.
I was going to say ties. That's a different region of the world.
Yeah. We're not talking about Thailand today.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yes, I still have a lot, some relatives in the region, and it's mainly in Iraq and little in Turkey.
Well, you brought up the election, so that's what made me think of it because that's a big thing. What is it? Minnesota right now? Michigan. Thank you. Michigan. That's a big thing right now, right? Because the relatives specifically, like, hey, that's my family, it's my friends. So that's just what made me think of it.
Yeah, and it's, the problem is not just like normal people don't know the difference. I have problems with the elite not knowing the difference.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I remember back in 2010 when I first landed in the US, like people always warn you from the culture shock. It's like, okay, you will go to the US and then you will be like culturally shocked, and they're like different reasons, and people will be shocked in different ways. It's like the opposite. If you go to Iraq, you will be shocked in many ways, I can guarantee you. But and some of it good, some of it bad. And my culture shock was not like just meeting different people or the weather, even though like I came in Snowzilla in 2010, like everything was frozen and I stuck in New York for 3 days. But that was not actually the shock. The shock was when I started working as a journalist in DC, and I was blessed, I guess, to have access to all the like big heads, if you want to call them. And I lived in Congress for 14 years, technically. And the shock was how ignorant sometimes, a lot of times, the people in charge are.
I think it's the forefront of this election right now, that whole argument.
Yeah, I remember there was some stories over the summer about it very much feels like that 2002, 2003 post 9/11 climate in some ways, just in the sense of both parties. It's not just one side doing it. Like there's been a few Harris rallies where they just they've like turned people away or have outright said, hey, we're not going to be answering your questions at the rally. And it just looks like a blatant, like, hey, we either just pulled your name or we just clocking you like it's at the airport kind of thing. So I've noticed that it just feels very familiar, I guess we'll say.
I agree, and a lot of people sometimes, you mentioned Harris, and we had all these demonstrations. I don't know if I'm pulling away from the topic, but it's just
that's fine.
These things, like related to the Middle East. Like all these demonstrations happened, in different campuses in the US, and a lot of people. I mean, some people I know, like the people I met before, and it was interesting to ask them about. Okay, so why you went to this demonstration and that, and what's your opinion? You were chanting from the river to the sea. Do you know what river and what sea? And literally some of them, they really didn't know what they were chanting. And that's a kind of go back to the problem of, I think I tied to education today. In the morning, I had a conversation with a friend of mine. She's a she's working in Iraq, and we were talking about like one of the big mistakes of the U.S. in 2003, and when they toppled down Saddam Hussein. And I think one of the greatest problems for Americans, for the U.S. in Iraq, I was one of the people who were very happy to get rid of Saddam. But it's like we always, as American, think about the freedom, the first two main freedoms for any American. If they know what are the freedoms, they will say freedom of speech and freedom of religion. And if you are an American and you want to bring freedom to Iraq, that's probably this will be probably the first thing you will think about. You want Iraqis to have freedom of speech and you want them to have freedom of religion. But this is really dangerous freedoms to give right away in Iraq, because basically they will kill each other because of that. Using your freedom, they will abuse the freedom. And that's one of the things, because Iraq needed freedom of education, needed separation between church and state, I guess, but not just these basic freedoms. And education is a problem in Iraq, and it was a shock for me when I came to the US, and I found education is a problem in America too.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things I found interesting is like when I've worked with you and stuff, and I think you've schooled me on some things, and some of the other people was like you said, the freedom of religion, that we understand it, and then we don't understand what the separation of church and state. Like in America, it's to us, it's like common sense, but then we're not common sense, but we're so used to it. Like, oh yeah, separating church, the government and church don't intermix. But over in the Middle East, not necessarily every country, but a lot of the countries, it's completely intermingled in a weird way.
Yeah. Because one of the major things, I mean, the major differences, I mean, think about these principles when it came to the US. Mm-hmm. People flood their countries and wanted to create a better place, right? Mm-hmm. And they wanted to have these fundamentals, and they agree that if you don't have that freedom, mm-hmm. that's bad. So we learned in Europe, I guess Americans learned, the ancestors learned, founding fathers learned, like if you don't have freedom of religion, the problem was that everybody was killing each other, mm-hmm. right? In Europe. And also freedom of speech. Everybody, like all books were burning and everything. So they decided to come to this land and create this utopia, I guess, of like applying these freedoms. Everybody understood what can go wrong. Let's start fresh. Mm-hmm. In Iraq, for example, no, everybody been sitting there fighting for 1400 years and more. And everyone think this is the right. So when you come and just give them these freedoms, they are not educated about anything in their past, because it's all dictatorship and Ottoman Empire and whatever. And so they were not even close to this idea of understanding. You would think they did, but they don't, because people who control the minds are actually more tied to the religion establishment than to anything else. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem. People will that's why, a lot of people, they say they learned for 1400 years how to die for Allah, mm-hmm. in the jihad, but for 1400 years nobody came and taught them how to live for Allah. You know what I mean? Like how to live to be a better person. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously it was there, but nobody focused on it, because it was always somebody's killing someone.
Mm-hmm. So, can you solve it for us real quick?
No. No.
Well, it seems like the fighting part's easy. It's trying to live, a good life. That's the hard part. So they're embracing that.
Well, I mean, it's kind of a good point. Like it's like you're essentially saying the idea of going in and spreading democracy and just saying let it rip. Hey, we're going to do the same thing. Give you the same blueprint that we had in the foundation of America, but it's without addressing the context of what you're doing, that or the country that you're doing it 2002. I mean, and that kind of ties into the idea of like a dummy government, right? Like a puppet government where you're presenting the idea of it. But I mean, I haven't lived in that one. So I couldn't say what that's like. But I mean, if you want to school us a little bit, like what that entails, or uh, I'm sure that's changed quite a bit, right, over the last 20 years, just depending on which country you're talking about.
Yeah, you need to be more specific. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, like, if we were to talk about, I mean, over the last 4 years, Afghanistan, right? Like, major shift happened when we pulled out. And it just, I mean, like, we were just kind of like on that, it seemed just we were just kind of like holding the Game of Thrones, hold door, right? We're just holding the door.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we leave and boom, Taliban's just fully in charge, right?
We don't have smart people. That's the thing. We don't have smart people. Honestly, it's as simple as that. Because you are holding something for what? Like, what are we doing? It's like, you know, okay, we are holding it. Yeah, sure. But I'm one of the people who I didn't want the US to pull out of Iraq in 2011. But for how long? I mean, and for what? Like, what are we doing? That's the important part. I mean, yes, we are trying to save, I guess, or help. That's how politicians like to talk about. We are helping Iraq. How? Well, we are not. Like, we are not putting the money where it should be. We are not supporting the right people. And that's not an opinion. It's a fact. You have 20 years and look at the result, right? So it doesn't matter which side of the aisle you sit. The problem, we are not, you cannot, if your car broke down, you cannot take it to the same mechanic 5 times and he's not fixing it and he's making more problems to you, and you cannot just keep taking it to the same mechanic. You have to change your mechanic. You have to change, like, what do you give to have a different result? And we're not doing that. Not in Iraq, not in many countries in the region, absolutely not in Afghanistan. Just because we don't have smart people and we don't have a clear plan. I don't want to go in a rabbit hole and talk about other things, because sometimes, you know, believe it or not, it can come to that. Like, you would start thinking, is it though? Are they stupid? Because it can't. They're taking the car to the same mechanic for 200 times.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, like, honestly, like, how long are we expected to do this though? Like, how like, if it's the same problems over and over, and obviously what we're doing isn't working, then you kind of look at the motivations for why we're still doing that. And, you know, like, it's not because out of the goodness of our hearts, right? Like,
absolutely
like,
not.
I look at it from like the greater, bigger picture, and Eisenhower had his famous speech about the military-industrial complex, and we totally ignored it. So, like, there's bigger players involved than just nobility, right? Like, we're absolutely not doing it because we're good people. We have vested interest in these things. So, I mean, if you want to look into it that way, that's where my brain starts to wander when we talk about this kind of thing. I just start thinking about
that's even if you, sorry to interrupt, even if you agree on, I mean, I agree 100% with you. We should not. I mean, again, I was opposing in 2011, but at the same time, I was asking myself, but if we stay, what are we doing? And that's the mechanic theology. It's just about a theory. Sorry, it's about what are we doing. So we are not doing anything, but you think, if we are pulling back from a country we invested, you know, blood in, I don't, you know, leave the money, but how many Americans were lost in Iraq? This is a sacrifice. When we leave, we don't want that to go back all the way to the beginning. It shouldn't be that way. And that's where you are out. Yes, I don't want anybody to be there. But what are the next step? What's the next step? Who you will entrust there? how you will apply your diplomacy there, how you will use your economy to help, how you will use other things to help. If you look at Iraq today, and again, I'm going all the way back every time I go back to Iraq just because I'm from there, and I can give other examples about different countries, but this is just the country I work on so much. You look at the investment, oil, for example, right? Everybody's talking about oil, and this is a war about oils, like back in 1990. But we are not getting anything from Iran. We're not getting good prices on oil. We are not getting good deals on oil. We are not getting our companies to build and invest in oil as the Chinese does. So what are we doing? So, I mean, I talk to many, many, many American investors who try to go to Iraq. They can't, because they're always our target. But this, we should have a big stake in Iraq, in a good way, at least, not a novelty, not just because we have a good heart, just because we invested there. So where is the return from that investment? Nothing. And that's a problem.
Yeah, that's what makes me think, okay, you know, I am by no means an expert, but if you just like, following money is just the easiest way for me to understand how and why a lot of things happen. And if it's just literally as simple as military contract groups lobbying, you know, spending a bunch of money on politicians, and like there's the whole thing about, you know, Cheney and Halliburton, you know what I'm saying? It's just following the money, and it doesn't, like, yeah, if we might not be getting America might not be getting a big win out of this, but the people that are paying essentially the politicians to vote a certain way, that's it. I mean, when you look at it that way, it's depressing, right? It's just very like, if it's just that basic on a general level, yeah, of course that's really depressing. And I do have a fairly depressing look at a lot of our politics.
Yeah.
But that is just kind of how I see
Welcome
it when
to
I
the
follow
club.
money.
So it's been about, what, 20 years since Saddam was killed in the whole region. And after we pulled out, what do you think the general, how do Iraqis view Americans or America ever since they pulled out? Is there resentment, or are they kind of just complacent about America now? I mean, I know there's pockets in Iraq that are helping with the whole problems we have in dealing with Israel right now as well. But what is the general population? How do they feel about us?
The people who like the U.S. are getting are not been helped.
Yeah.
And that was part of the problem when I said we are not entrusting the right people.
Right.
The people who actually invested their life. Because again, in Iraq, it was not just the American who were fighting. The Iraqis were fighting too. I mean, I worked as a cultural advisor / interpreter for 3 years. I left my hometown because I was getting threat from all sides, from Al Qaeda, from the Shia militias, from everybody. My car bombed, my house bombed, everything. I lost a lot of friends, family members, and we had to leave. And again, that was, believe it or not, it was not a good feeling, but it was something. You knew you were fighting the right fight.
Right.
But then what? I had to fight my way 3 years by my own to get my papers to come to the US with no help from anybody who I served with in Iraq. And believe me, I served with big names. Nobody helped. And that's fine, because when I came to Washington, I understood it's not about them, because nobody is supporting from here. Even if you are like a captain or a major serving in Iraq, what you can do? You can pull some money and give me.
Yeah.
You can help Ali in person. You can, send prayer, which is great. Send a recommendation paper, which is great. That's it. Because the system is not actually helping. So back to your question, a lot of people who wanted America to invest in the right places, education, health, infrastructure, they were forsaken. And they saw American, and again, it's not about the American people, because it's like everywhere you go, American people like people will generally like love like the public, except if you go to Paris, nobody like anybody in Paris. Right? But they're French, who cares?
Yeah, we don't need the
exactly
giant antenna,
right. But then again, you go to Iraq and people like, yeah, they would love to talk to you. But again, they don't have a support from American. And the other party who are hating America, right, chanting all these chants, goes back. These people were not there in 2003. We allowed them as Americans to grow. They were not there.
Yeah.
Like nobody, like the very, very, like the minority of people. I was there. I served in almost like 6-7 different places in Iraq, and it was not there. It was there a little bit. People who supported Saddam. That's it. People who supported Saddam, Ba'ath Party, all these like people who got basically crushed because of the U.S. invasion to Iraq. These people, they generally hate U.S. But the other people, a lot of people, they were uncertain. They didn't know. I remember when they pulled one of Saddam's statues in my hometown, and somebody in a tractor, like the farmer's tractor, had the head chained behind the tractor, and the guy was pulling the head around town. And I remember one of my aunts, she said, oh, don't open the door. We said, we were kids, and we said, we just want to look. This is Saddam's head, and I have like my cousins and stuff. We just want to see like Saddam's head in the street. He said, no. Saddam's people are recording everybody in the street, and they will come to you. They will get you. People were afraid of Saddam's shadow for at least 2 years after the invasion of 2003. So at least 2000 till Saddam was found and tried and then hanged. That's 2006. People were really concerned that Americans will make deal with Saddam and they bring him back.
Well, from history, I mean, they had already made a deal with him before. So
yes,
that's true.
Thank you. So then this amount of people, like after 2006, people start, okay, this is a new reality. Let's deal with it. Now, the one hating party became 6 different hating groups, and they start expanding. Iran spending money, Iraqi money, by the way. Iranian, they take Iraqi's money, and sometimes money given to them, put it that way, and they use it, and they recycle it in killing and abusing and destroying the minds of Iraqis.
So how do you kind of started elaborating there? I was wondering how those voices were allowed to grow. Is it just because we didn't keep a tight enough control over who was appointed or allowed to serve in high positions?
Very good question. Actually, I asked this question before here in the US, especially after 2010. So the American idea was, okay, so this is 2003. We are toppling a biggest dictatorship in the Middle East, Saddam Hussein, and we are bringing these people who are willing to rule and help. These are the parties who were 100% formed outside of Iraq, people living in different places, Iran, Syria, London. Few of them were here in Washington, actually, from the Iraqi resistance or the Iraqi oppositions, right? So we brought these people as Americans, and we thought, okay, these people are able, and the Kurds, obviously, we want these people to rule just because we know these people have some popular base in Iraq, and they are from well-known parties, generally. These parties came, these group of people, they came and they formed this governing council back in 2003. We did mistakes again by like hiring people on top of the American side who don't understand anything about the Middle East. You have a lot of names. And we decided these people can govern the Iraqis, this governing council, and try to make this council as like the advisors on how we should run the country. So we started by writing a new constitution. That's fine. It's not the perfect one, but it's fine. Nothing perfect. Write this document. We wrote that. And then we decided, okay, so now let's start voting. Great. Give the people the right to vote. And they can pick whatever they want. The American, this is what they want. Just make people go and vote, and that will make everything legal. We gave people the two freedoms, right? The two poisons in Iran. We gave them the two freedom, speech and religion, right? Now, everybody start to accumulate on one side. Sunnis on one side, Shia on one side, Kurd on one side. They know they're following their heart, their religion, and their freedom. And the establishment the religious establishment start pulling different game. If you want to go to heaven, you need to vote to a certain party, believe it or not. If you want to enjoy a better life closer to, the divine, you need to vote to that. And people don't have any education about it. And people really believed, we've been ruled by Sunnis for 80 years, almost 100 years. And we've been, we had all kind of discrimination against us. Now we need to follow our own. So we start following our own. Americans looking, that's normal. This is normal. These are the hiccups of a democracy. People start voting, then, they will bring this religious establishment, and they find out, they are bad people. Let's change and go to a different group. Except Iraqis don't do that. It's about religion. So if one clerk fall, there are 10 next in line, and we still believe the next one will be the one closer to the divine. And anyone will be closer to us than the other party, which is the evil party, because it's all about that. Americans, again, you just wanted, they will learn. And hey, it's democracy. At least nobody is killing except everybody in the street. But, at least, that there is a transformation, a peaceful transformation of power. Yeah, I mean, if you have a 20 person and your turn will come to you, you don't have to fight. It's coming to you.
So would you say that the big mistake on our end was essentially allowing, because it sounds like three different theocracies, parties of theocracies running. Was that what the problem is that?
Yeah, we narrow it down now to three different parties or two different parties. But again, it's like you had 10 people killing each other, but then the 10 people decided, it's not time to fight now. We are eating the country from different ways, economy, or now we have the resources to just stay in power forever, and nobody can say anything because we have a peaceful transformation of power. We will have election, and you will see people fighting in parliament, but this is all just a face. You see it, it's there, but who's really ruling?
Kind of like here right now.
Yeah.
Now I have a hypothetical. Do you think no one who has been president since 1990, do you think if Schwarzkopf would have got his way and was able to push all the way through to Baghdad and taking out Saddam back in 1990, 91, do you think things would be better or different knowing who's been in charge of the U.S.?
Do you know why Bush the father didn't do it though?
No. Well, he was the one that did the deal with Saddam back in the 80s.
Why?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure why we were backing him.
Well, because this is something I read, and obviously I cannot remember. I mean, coffee destroyed a lot of my brain, and Scotch did the rest. But
yeah, bourbon on my end, man.
I don't want to turn the camera to this side because it's all Scotch, so probably rated. I just have the Scotland flag only. Because he believed, or the advisors at the time, the CIA advisors mainly, and the Office of Foreign Relations in the State Department, advised that if we are toppling Saddam Hussein, Iran will take control.
Okay. They actually, well, and with Bush being former CIA head, I'm sure he was paying more attention to them than.
Yes, and again, this is 1990. Right. The war with Iran ended just 2 years before that.
Mhm.
It ended on August in 1988. So 1990 was very close. So it's just like that. And by the way, in 1991, Iraq had what they call it a revolution at the time, and it was mainly powered by Iranian militias in the south. And a lot of them, start clearing down Ba'ath Party centers and killing people there, and trying to topple Saddam their own way, believing at the time if they do that in too many places and in enough places in the map, the U.S. will support them and will take down Saddam. When that happened, actually Americans saw the amount of support these people getting from Iran, and they said like, no, we really, if we want to take Saddam now, nobody can take control except these kind of militias.
Okay.
So let's just pull back. Guess what? These militias came in bigger parties, bigger numbers in 2003, and voila, they're there.
Doesn't sound like they've changed their strategy with Israel and Gaza and all that right now.
No. The Iranian side never changed their strategies. We didn't know what is our strategy.
Yeah.
There's this kind of the religious aspect of this got me thinking. There's at least one famous picture of bin Laden in the 70s, and it shows, it's not, this topic isn't limited to him, but he's like him and his family, and they're wearing bell bottoms, which is the style of the 70s. Like, it just showed a very different Middle East, essentially, a very different Afghanistan, right?
No, and so bin Laden was actually in Saudi Arabia.
Oh, Saudi Arabia. That actually starts to already kind of answer my question a little bit. But although they've gone through their own waves, right? But it just started making me think about how these things form, because you kind of already elaborated or kind of spoke on this by essentially saying power vacuums, right? Like where people get pulled and maybe like extremists get put into power. But it just started making me think about that, just how these things change, because it wasn't always like this, yes. At least in recent history, we'll say.
Yes. So it's 1950s, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the region was kind of controlled by either monarchies or just like recently pulling from under the British Empire, which is a British Empire controlled after World War I, and they, controlled a lot of these countries, Iraq included, and they installed some monarchies in Iraq and Egypt and Syria and Jordan, and people really did not have a lot of interest in politics. Somebody was ruling, and nobody cared. Resources was limited, no oil. The curse of the Middle East. So just people are getting by. When the 50s happened, or even before that a little bit, but let's just say the 50s, when people start forming more parties, and some parties were there from the 20s, the 30s, but when they start forming more parties and they are getting their independence, a lot of the independent country got ruled by the military. Iraq included, Egypt included, Syria included, and these new government, they did not want to tie themselves to any religious or religion establishment. So they just wanted to be, okay, we are not secular, but we are nationalists, right? So the nationalists became the movement of the 40s and 50s. This movement destroyed the middle class destroyed the religious establishment in some ways. Not the middle class. They did not give space to a lot of the religious establishment or religion establishment. They tried to make the country go to a little bit to the west or to the east. It's actually a lot of these countries got more influence from the Soviet Union than from the west in many, many places. But nevertheless, people were wearing all these kind of things, being free, being, not really religious. But then after 10 years, the 60s hits, and the 60s, but the mid 60s, the religious establishment started growing back again. The Muslim Brotherhood, actually, which is one of the biggest problems in the Middle East, started getting more fund and more fund from different countries, mainly Saudi Arabia back in the days, that source of money. And these people start pulling down all these small groups of religious people. This government is not helping us. This government is not helping us. And people, if they don't have the enough resources of money and living a good life, they always turn to the religion part, because at least religion provide them with this faith and with this peace of mind in the Middle East. It's like, even if today is bad, tomorrow Allah will bring better days.
Mm-hmm.
So making them more laying down and just waiting for a better day, till this group of people grow in numbers. So the number of these people, the believers, the people who wanted different kind of change, it grows and start having some problems for this government. In Egypt, start having, they tried, as they actually killed Sadat, 1982, I think, or 81, after he did the peace agreement with Israel. They start making problems for Iraq, for Syria. So what happened? All these regimes, all these non-religious affiliated regimes, they start changing the narrative. They start saying, no, we need to give more space to the religion establishment. We need to give them more say. We need to give them. So what happens? People start dressing up, covering up more and more restrictions appear. Some of these governments actually took on their agendas, they put some of these like theologies and some of ideas of religious of very fundamental religious concepts, and they pull it to their own agendas and they start applying it, so making restrictions in the country. And don't forget, almost all mosques and all religious places at that time, they are trying to gather the masses more and more and more and more. If the government is not helping you, Allah will help you. If the government is not helping you, we are here to support you. So a lot of these places, the government is not giving you money, but you go to the mosque and you take a box full of goods, of food for a month. So you start adapting to the people who are helping you, who are giving you a better day. And this dictatorship in the region did not help the people. So they pushed actually to the people to the hands, into the arms of the fundamentalists. And the same story in Afghanistan. Obviously, if you see, this is the Soviet Union, and the atheists ruling, pushing people away from God. They wanted people to organize themselves under Mujahideen, and then the Mujahideen took the rule, thinking Afghanis thinking that will be the best solution and the best replacement, but then it was not. Did I make a lot of
that
sense?
actually was a pretty that really honestly adds some layers of context, because you kind of get a general idea of the religious aspect over the last 20-30 years, but that does a pretty good job of explaining just kind of how things work, because that I was in my head, I was also just applying it to, that's just people in general, right? Like, just, hey, you helped me and this person is actually screwing me in some way. And you just have a natural inclination to want to be the other person's friend or whatever, be closer to that person or group in this
Believe
case.
it or not, I have better hope for the Middle East now.
Oh yeah,
because the sources of money, the one major source of money for years was Saudi Arabia. That's even the Crown Prince said that in an interview last year, 2 years ago actually. So it was he actually said, a lot of people got funded by the Saudis, not the government necessarily. He did not say the government, but a lot of money was funneling to the Wahhabis and to the Salafis and to the Muslim Brotherhood from Saudi Arabia for years and years and years. The young prince now, he have a different vision. He tried to modernize Saudi Arabia in big ways, big shift. That's actually one of the, in my opinion, great hopes in the region, because I believe there are certain big players in the region, and then you have some other small players or puppets, maybe Muppets, I don't know. but Saudi Arabia definitely is the major one. So if the Saudis decide to change, then this will align with our, supposed to be aligning with what we want in the region. Then we'll start seeing major shift. Before that, you need to clear the weed, and that's why we have a lot of killing now.
Now, I had a quick question. This is off topic, but since you brought up Saudi Arabia, I've been seeing a lot of stuff about this thing. I think they're calling it Line City.
Line.
How is that coming along, and what do you think about this whole project?
Can you elaborate what that is real quick?
Well, so the line is a horizontal.
Oh, that's what you're talking? Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
so horizontal city. I think it's like, I don't know, it's like a 70-mile
self-sufficient type design. It's got mirrors on the outside to reflect, to keep the heat out. It's got a lot of greenery on the inside. And
I saw progress. This essentially get abandoned? Like
no. If you have enough money, I think no. Because you will hire people to live there. But I'm saying it's actually there is a progress. He was MBS Mohammed bin Salman was actually there, I think 2 weeks ago. I think he opened some parts of it, but this it should finish by 2030. This is like the vision 2030, but I don't think it will be. It got delayed like another 10 years, but some of it will be ready. And the
whole concept, scientific side, and and environmentally and architecturally, I thought it was.
They paid a top-notch journalist from England. I know, like, some of the people who worked on that project to make this long documentary about it. And it's, I mean, even if it's not done, I think the ambition needs to have some credit.
I think the idea is super cool, and
they're
not the only country to pitch something like that. But it's the last I saw was maybe a year or two ago, and it was like a picture showing the update, and essentially nothing had happened at that point. Like it was just the land where it was supposed to be, and they had done practically nothing. But I do think it's a really cool idea, and it's something just from like a
sci-fi movie.
But like from a preservation of Earth kind of standpoint, it's a good idea, especially out there when you want to stop the spread of untenable land, right? So I want it to happen. I want more of that kind of, because they're even pitching that in Arizona, I think, something similar to this.
Well, if we try to do like just one note here, if Americans, I mean us, if we try to do one project like that, I guarantee you we will not do it in 100 years.
Oh yeah, it'd take us forever.
But that's one thing. I mean, I don't know, you guys, if you ever visited Dubai or any one of the Gulf countries. In Dubai, if you see pictures or videos from Dubai 10 years ago and today, you will not recognize anything in that picture. And Saudi Arabia in a big competition with Dubai, in a good way. The competition I really want to see everywhere in the Middle East, competing in opportunities, in infrastructure, in AI, and like if you see like how much money Saudi Arabia is spending on AI in the entire globe, that nobody is spending from their GDP on AI like Saudi Arabia except Israel, believe it or not. Like not China even. Like the amount of money they put, the investment in the future. And that's one thing, one day if you want to talk, guys, about AI, I would love to join you too, because this is really, really fresh region for that. Nobody, like when you think about AI, you will never think about the Middle East. And if you see the investment in the Middle East, and they are like the amount of reverse migration, I would call it, from Silicon Valley to the Middle East is very interesting.
Wow.
Some people, yes, and because they give money, like you can't believe how much money they spent. I know some people, they left Google and Meta, which is Facebook, and joined Saudi Arabia, and these people are like from Tunisia, from Egypt, so they are Arabs. One of them Arab, the other one not, but they both joined Saudi Arabia. It's closer to the region, it's more money, and it's better opportunities. no taxes, for example. Who can hate that, right?
Right.
But the one thing you said, they just barely started. When they decide to start, you will not believe how fast they can do
I
it.
believe what you're saying right there because I've seen I when it comes to projects in America, for better and worse, like there's the better in the sense that we have a lot of regulations that prevent some batshit buildings that you might see in other countries, or infrastructure that you might see. Like some of that stuff, like I wouldn't trust, right? But at the same time, it also slows us the way down on getting anything accomplished. So something like a line city, no, I don't see it
Or an
happening ever in my
airport.
lifetime. Or an airport. Yeah, something
Well, look
simple.
how long it took for them to rebuild Freedom Tower over the World Trade Center. I mean, that's something that should have been started right away, in my opinion, just to show that, we're not backing down. We're here. We're going to stay, and we're going to build back better. And it took what, like 16 years for them to really get going. I mean, that's not acceptable. And it's because of the red tape, the regulations. You have to deal with the unions. You have to deal with greasing the politicians. And it seems like out in Saudi Arabia, here's the money.
Yeah.
Go build it.
They have that money though, right? They
Yeah.
have that oil money. Like they like you were talking about them courting, pulling or poaching our tech guys. They have that money. They can just spend it. I mean, and yes, I would rather them spend that money on something positive like that than uh, all the negative stuff you hear from those regions. So that's a much better use of that money, I think. And I keep thinking of the environmental aspect, and just like I'm in Southern California, and it's not the heat that you get out there, but you still see. I've flown over SoCal on my way to Alaska, and then back, right? And just Alaska. When you think Alaska, you probably think of snow and whatever, but no, it's really, 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 really green. Like it's lots of life and vegetation. And as I'm flying back over California, it's just dead. It's dead all around. And so like the idea of a city like that, where it's not just uh full of homes, but also like encouraging vegetation and clean air and self-sustaining, that's a very interesting idea to me that I do want to see thrive.
Did you see the amount of smog on top of LA?
Oh God.
Yeah, and it used to be so much worse in the 90s or the early 90s and 80s.
I remember an episode of South Park about that.
Yeah. Smug.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just curious, like, where do you see like Iraq in the next 10 years? What do you think it's going to be like?
Probably neighboring Syria, Turkey, Iran will be the same. But
Yeah.
I think.
So you don't think the whole country's gonna move? It's gonna stay there?
I don't think the map will be the same. No. I think we are very close to see like an area north Iraq, Kurdistan region. I think they will have either. I mean, I don't know if they will have their own country in 10 years, but I think they will be very close to. Yeah.
But like financially, where do you think it's going to be? Like
Iraq have money. Like that's one of the like the good things and the bad things in Iraq, because the more money you have, you will not ever run out of corrupt people. And and you'll never run out of good ideas, but you need thinkers to have these ideas and to implement these good ideas. You'll see better skylines. You'll see a lot of buildings. You'll see a lot of stability in the economy. But culturally and the principles of living as a free society, it's far away from Iraq.
Gotcha.
I would never invest there, though. You're talking about the market investment.
Yeah. So
the housing market.
Like don't invest.
You see the prices in Iraq for housing.
Yeah.
I wanted actually to send you some prices and some pictures from Iraq. It's crazy how expensive. It's crazy
right.
how expensive. Like to buy land in downtown Baghdad is more expensive than Manhattan.
Did you ever watch Arrested Development?
No.
Okay, because there was an underlying storyline in that show where, and obviously Chris has seen it, where the Bloom family was investing in housing in Iraq, and they actually were hiding Saddam Hussein in an attic in a house in California. But one of it was all that, like when you saw the model home, it looked like a Middle East building, but like all the housing was, and so he got arrested because he was laundering money through housing investments in Iraq. And it was just this weird storyline. But it's kind of funny how you brought that up, the housing market in Iraq.
Yes.
And it was like part of the story of the show, which was just a ridiculous show in general, but like some of the stuff they did was hilarious. And then he was investing in Iraq. And he
Light treason, he called it.
Yeah, light treason. But yeah. Well, I thank you for coming on. I think we've kept you here, and I know that a couple people have to leave soon. But I would like to have you back, definitely to talk about AI, because I know you're passionate about that, and you know a lot about it. Just knowing you.
How about an episode after the election results?
Oh, that I would like to have you back and to talk about that.
That's soon, actually.
Yeah, like this is going to air.
I don't think it will be soon.
Well, the count might not be, but the election will be.
Yeah, the election will be over. We still won't know who the president is.
I have a hat. I will wear it next time.
Okay, so next time you wear your hat and
signed hat.
Oh, nice. Well, nice. When you I'll have you back on, and you can tell us. We'll do election results with you, because actually you used to do it. Like when you and I worked together, you used to do the show.
I'm the John King
last election.
Yeah, John King. I'm the magic wall guy.
Yeah. You were the dude that would like hit the buttons and turn the states to.
That's why I got the
award,
the trophy. Trying to explain the electoral college to Middle East.
Oh God! Try doing that to Americans first, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, and maybe you can explain it. That'd be awesome to have a Middle East perspective on the electoral college. Sure. And you can.
I'm writing about it actually.
Yeah. Oh, really? Yeah, I definitely want to have you back more often, because I tried to get you on years ago, and due to lawyers, you were not allowed to talk to me. Even though we worked together, they still wouldn't let you come talk to me on my show.
Now I can.
Yeah, you can do what you want. Yeah. Nice. But thank you for coming on, man.
Thank you guys. I hope I was any kind of help.
No, this was great. It was really nice meeting you.
Yeah, it was awesome, and it was educational. I learned some things I didn't realize, like even though I've worked with you and others, and I work with a lot of stuff about the Middle East daily, and I still didn't. There's some things I didn't realize.
We have better things to do, I guess.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'm just not paying attention to what I'm doing when I'm working.
We appreciated that.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks, man. Thanks. Okay, I'm making you leave now. And we'll talk to you. Yeah, we'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. Yeah. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sweet. See you later, man.
Bye.
Bye. Cool, man. That was Ali.
Yeah, it was great. Awesome.
No, he's a cool cat. I like that guy.
Yeah. So maybe if y'all come visit, we can all hang out together sometime, because he doesn't live too far away. He lives about 30 minutes from me.
Next trip to Gettysburg, we'll head over.
Yeah. He schooled me a lot. Like when he first came on and we started working together, he taught me a lot about Iraq and explained, because I had a very Middle East, it's all the same, and then he explained every country to me and how they are different, and why democracy may not necessarily work in that different countries. And he goes, but that's okay, because there are things that will work that are still positive. And he goes, so not every country can be a democracy. And so it was interesting. I was like, all right.
Yeah.
All right. And that's
I like that.
Yeah, I'd love to have him back. We could do the AI and the election. That sounds good.
Yeah. his AI,
That was
his AI
funny
like
when he said you know when you're talking about AI, you're thinking like Silicon Valley or something. I was like Skynet.
yeah.
Yeah, no, because he it sounds like he might. I'm more on your end of it. It sounds like he's more excited about it, and I'm more like, screw this. So I wanna,
Yeah,
I wanna butt heads a little bit on that, but or maybe not. Maybe he'll convert me.
yeah.
But
He's been doing a lot of research on it, so like I know that like he knows a lot about it. That I was like he's passionate about AI
yeah.
and using it, as he says, using it properly.
Right.
Yes, because there is ways to use it properly and other ways not to. But
Mm.
I thank you guys for coming on, and the people who checked us out and looked into us. Thank you for stopping by and come back
The
for
real
more.
heroes that
Yeah.
push the play button.
Yeah, and didn't stop or hit next or skip, and subscribe because there will be more. Yeah,
and
like,
comment
subscribe, and comment and share and tell your mom and dad and grandma about us.
Yep.
And subscribe them as well. So there you go.
There you go.
All right. Till next time, we'll see you. Have a good one.
All right.
Later.